for something to. Wait a minute, nothing spun. It was just went boom. Wait, we're live, right? It went away already. Oh, okay, it's up here in the corner. What's happening, wrestling fans?
We're trying to figure out how to do this. It's been a while since we've had a Two Bros Wrestling show, Doug.
It has been a minute. Fortunately, absolutely nothing happened in the wrestling world while we took our spring vacation.
I have no idea why. Every time we decide to take a couple of weeks off, like literally everything in the world happens in professional wrestling. Obviously, we don't have the time to talk about everything, but we'll be talking tonight in our main event topic about what's upcoming, and that is WWE Backlash on Saturday. And before we do that, though, Doug, and after we do the news, we're going to have a little bit about the WWE Draft. But
the draft.
Before we do all that, if we remember how to do this.
Okay, there's an opening bell. All right, I remember the opening bell.
The opening bell, obviously, way too much news to talk about, Doug, as you alluded to, since we have been off, like literally the biggest story in maybe this century of wrestling, I would say it's safe to say. Obviously, the biggest thing that's happened since we've been away, we've been off since WrestleMania, but the biggest thing was the sale of WWE that we were all expecting, sold to the Endeavor Group, which is the parent company of USC. This is obviously a huge topic that we, not just a huge topic at this point, it's not news. If you're a wrestling fan, you know this. So we're going to table it and mark your calendars. 2 weeks from tonight, wrestling fans, we're going to dedicate an entire show to everything we know about the details of this sale, as well as what we still don't know and speculate on where this may all lead. So we're going to do an entire wraparound show, everything in a nice, tidy package that one would need to know about the sale of WWE to Endeavor. Definitely the biggest story in wrestling in decades, at the very least, if not longer than that. Doug, we'll cover it all here in 2 weeks. How's that sound?
Man, remember when, like last summer, we were talking about this is probably the biggest story of the century when Vince McMahon left WWE only to return and sell his company and make that the biggest story.
Yeah, it's been a crazy couple of months in pro wrestling. This sale has a lot of intrigue as far as who has a job, who doesn't have a job, who's worried about their job, what this means for TV rights. We're going to get into all of that here in 2 weeks, where we'll wrap up everything anyone needs to know about the sale of WWE to the parent company of USC. I think we can all breathe a sigh of relief that it at least wasn't the country of Saudi Arabia that sold it,
yes.
right? So we got that.
We got that, yes. So I guess hooray for small victories? I don't know.
I guess time is going to tell on that. It is not the only news. By far, that's the biggest news since we've been off, but some more recent news, and that was this past Monday, Triple H announced on Raw that there is going to be the creation of a new world championship, and it will be defended on whichever brand that is not getting Roman Reigns in the draft. Of course, we now know that means this is going to be a new world championship on the Raw brand. This new champ is going to be determined at Clash of Champions here at the end of May. And this is obviously something that has been long rumored. I think we actually, one of our last shows before we took our hiatus, we talked about the fact that a brand, more of I guess, not just a brand split, that they want to keep more, formal than they have in the past. They wanted to solidify that by having separate champions. Supposedly this has been in the works since last WrestleMania. Like when they first unified the titles with Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns at last WrestleMania, apparently the plan was always to how we separate those titles following the stipulation we sort of tied ourselves to. It took them more than a year, but this is how they're going to do it. I don't know what you think about this, Doug. I know to me, it's a bit awkward that they've introduced the new title belt while Roman still has two championships that were never officially merged.
You see, this is the problem I have with this, because like you say, Roman has two championships that, they call a unified title, but they've never created a unified belt. And, this also kind of telegraphs that Roman is staying the undisputed, God King of the WWE for the rest of time. And I'm just waiting, for this brand split that they're trying to make happen with with the draft completely dissolve and Roman get this belt too.
So really, I guess that, until they officially decide that, okay, Roman, now because of this, you are a universal champion again and you have one belt. Technically, we have 3 world titles currently.
Yes.
I don't know what you think, though, about having separate titles for separate brands, because I'm pretty sure last year we had a discussion about this and you and I kind of disagreed. Do you like the idea of separate champions? I like the idea of just one champion. Have you changed your mind any on that at all? Or do you think that ultimately it's a good thing for each brand to have a champ?
Well, I'm glad you reminded me of my position last year.
I'm sorry, that's hilarious.
Because I'm thinking, I really don't have a problem with it. I mean, there's an NXT champion. I don't have a problem with a SmackDown or a Raw champion. So I'm glad I'm being consistent with that.
I'll let you be the consistent one. I'll be the inconsistent one and say at the time I like the idea of we're in one world. Let's have one world champ that can bounce between shows. But especially, I guess, under the circumstances, if you're going to have a champion who is at this point a part-timer himself, who doesn't do house shows and things like that, it does make a bit of sense to have someone who's going to be on the road, someone that can appear at Raw so that you can utilize however many dates are on Roman Reigns' contract by keeping him just solely on Friday nights so that you don't, I guess, not waste, but he hasn't been really seen since WrestleMania. Part of that is because of the number of dates that he works. It does present itself a problem. So I'm a little more fine with it than I was if they're going to move in that direction. But interesting times. Lots of segues, by the way, Doug, tonight's news, because we're talking brand splits and all that sort of thing. So before we went on hiatus, I reported in our opening bell that AEW had a rumored new show that was going to be announced soon. Now, it still hasn't been announced officially yet, but we know a whole heck of a lot more about what's coming than we did before we went on our break. And it's all pretty big news. So first of all, AEW is going to be launching a new weekly series this summer. The 2-hour show is expected to be called Collision, air on TNT on Saturday nights, starting with a big June 17th episode from Chicago, starring none other than the return of CM Punk. It's also been widely reported that this will allow Tony Khan to do his own brand split, similar to what we have with Raw and SmackDown, and take his bloated, quite frankly, roster. And let's not forget, there's sort of a sub-roster when you throw in ROH as well. So you put all that into play, Doug. There's a lot to unpack in just this one news item. Take them one at a time. What do you think about this whole situation? First, having a new AEW show. Second, a brand split. And then finally, we'll talk the potential return of CM Punk.
Does AEW need a third show? I don't think so. Is it just to create a legit soft brand split so people who want to work with Punk can go to Collision and people who want absolutely nothing with Punk to do with Punk can stay on Dynamite and Rampage, since they're taking one right after another? Is that what this is? Sure. Well, that's not what this is about, but that's what this has become about. That's the story at this point, since Punk is apparently coming back. So I don't know. I have mixed feelings about this, especially since there's even more wrestling to watch now. I remember a time when I was like, there can never be too much wrestling. My goodness, Kevin, there's too much wrestling. I can't keep up.
It is going to be a time commitment to add another 2-hour show to the schedule. My concerns center around the fact that Saturday show, while that's a traditional wrestling night back in the old days of wrestling, in the modern day, I'm afraid that a Wednesday night prime time versus a weekend show is going to make the weekend show automatically a B show. It does make Rampage a little more skippable now, maybe because you're going to have a two brands, and Rampage is what now? That's to be determined. I like the idea of a brand split, honestly, only because Tony Khan has 3 hours of network television and 150 wrestlers, and that's way too many wrestlers for 3 hours of television. And again, that doesn't even include the ROH sub brand. So having a new show and a place to put those men and women, that I like. What I don't understand at all is CM Punk's return. That's something we didn't think we would see, and yet here we are.
Well, and CM Punk has returned a great many places this week.
I told you, a lot of segues.
But before we get to that, I was reading earlier that, Tony Khan also quietly ended one of his shows, Kevin.
That's right. Yes, he has. Actually, that is another segue I had, because we are apparently very quietly ending and pulling the plug on AEW Dark Elevation. So this rumored brand split for AEW and a whole new show, not to mention, again, separate ROH brand that's running weekly TV now on ROH's streaming platform, has put a quiet end to AEW Dark Elevation, because this past week's episode was a best of compilation that on Fight TV, the description read that it was the final episode. So even though there's no official announcement, it appears to be dead. Its longer running sister show, AEW Dark, however, which is a cool little studio show for those who haven't tuned into it on their YouTube channel, it will continue to air on Mondays. But yeah, so I guess he's getting rid of one 1 hour show to give us another 2 hour show that's going to be more consequential. So maybe it's not, the worst of things as far as more wrestling. It's just replacing one show for one that with commercials is maybe 20 minutes longer. Is a way to look at
it. I guess.
I guess. Well, back to what you alluded to about CM Punk. That's another news item. He is definitely making the rounds before his big return to AEW. Raw was in Chicago this past week, and CM Punk was backstage saying hello to friends.
And so was Punk.
Who knew he had friends? But apparently some of this was making amends, supposedly with others. But again, if you were to believe reports, Vince McMahon pretty much kicked Punk out prior to showtime. And then Punk was also backstage this week at Impact's tapings in Chicago, where it was reported he was made to feel very welcome. So
absolutely.
Different strokes for different folks, I guess.
Sure. Invited in, by the boys and security, where he was asked to leave by the head of security. I saw Cornette talking about this, and, Cornette did mention that, the head of security at a WWE event is not going to ask, one of the boys to leave unless Vince McMahon says, get that guy out of here. If it comes from anybody else, Vince McMahon's going to make that call. Because, there have been, Ricky Starks was at WrestleMania, Britt Baker's been on WWE television.
And even though those are AEW contracted talents, just like CM Punk is the one who is asked to leave. Pretty telling, I think. But again, Impact made him feel at home.
Yes, they did.
Speaking of Impact, segue after segue here. This would be the top news on any other week of the year. But former WWE superstar Naomi, now going by her real name Trinity, made her surprise debut at Impact at the recent tapings. The show, of course, has not yet aired, so spoiler alert. You're going to get Naomi / now Trinity. It was her first wrestling appearance since she and Sasha Banks walked out on WWE almost a year ago. And speaking of Miss Banks, Mercedes Moné, she's been wrestling for New Japan, but recently just lost her women's title to Mayu Iwatani, fueling speculation that Moné may soon end up back on a stateside roster. I wonder who has a new roster, maybe with some spots opening.
Who's got a show to fill, Kevin? With some other big returning stars besides CM Punk that have already been promised. Who's that?
That could get really interesting, but it's interesting to see Trinity not go to AEW and instead go, and no offense to Impact, who has quietly done some nice work over the last couple of years. But it does seem for someone of Naomi's stature, maybe a step down, I have to say. But
Yeah, maybe she gets to be the very big fish that she never got to be in WWE, though.
maybe she wants the schedule of showing up for tapings and not having to
Yeah,
make live TV all the time.
yeah.
Because they knock out 2 or 3 of those things at a time. But hey, while we're talking rosters, segue takes us to Roderick Strong.
Roddy!
He's off the WWE roster of NXT and add him to the AEW roster after making his debut this week, making it now a full Undisputed Era reunion on Tony Khan's product. So welcome to, I guess, the other overcrowded roster right now. So we'll see how that goes. Doug, with that is only the highlights of
I was
the
going to
news.
say,
Because,
that's it. We're done, right? We're covering and we're rolling on.
We got to roll on because if we get to the smaller news, all of those stories would be the top story on any given week.
Yes.
But before we do that, and before we talk main event topic, Doug, let's talk quickly about the WWE Draft Night 1.
All right.
Before we even talk about the picks, let's talk about the concept. So the draft took a year off in 2022, and I don't know what you think about it, but overall, I do like the idea of a draft. It makes it for a very sports-like presentation. Here are my 3 problems with it. The draft and separate rosters would definitely mean more if they ever got serious about maintaining that brand split. They play so fast and loose with it. It's hard to know, honestly, on any given week, who really is on what brand. They both feel like similar shows instead of like 2 separate products. Secondly, the draft would benefit from being on one night. They did this once. They had a big show on Peacock. I think they should do that every year, run it like a real sport with an all-day coverage thing. Having it spread to 2 shows makes you have to keep big names like for Raw tomorrow night. So you end up with weird things where mid-carders are being picked already, yet for some reason people like the Usos and Seth Rollins are still on the table, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And then my final issue with it is the rules are rather nebulous. Like, select NXT superstars are eligible. Like, which ones exactly? And why can you take an entire roster? Like, you can take a whole faction and count as one pick.
Yes, because I think the draft is dumb. I do not like the draft.
So you don't like it at all?
There's nothing you care for. I don't like it at all because, like you say, it makes no sense. Like, oh, look, we're going to take the entire OC and you get Miz. You know?
I think if you take more than one person, there should be like a penalty. Okay, you can take a faction, but you skip the 2nd and 3rd rounds, and now the other brand gets the pick around you. Like, it makes no sense to say, I'm taking 5 guys and you only get 1. Take all the factions and just load your roster, right?
Right, and the brand split, it would be less challenging to my brain if they enforced a brand split, but that never happens. I mean, we're already hearing the rumors for WrestleMania 40, which will be Cody and Roman Reigns, and that's the plan again for next year. But wait, those guys are on separate brands, so what?
When it fits storyline purposes, they allow folks to just wander onto whatever show. And by the fact they do that, the shows feel the same. I mean, they feel like there's one in red and there's one in blue. And other than the color scheme, there's not a whole lot to differentiate them. They have different announcers. Sometimes they have the same wrestlers on any given week. If you took someone from the mid card and say real quick, Doug, what show is, Imperium on, you'd either have to think about it for a second or you'd get it wrong.
This is true, but back to another point though. You're talking about select NXT stars too. They take the NXT champions, and yet Von Wagner is now a free agent, so he can go wherever he wants until he cuts a deal. What?
It's the rules that they that screw it up. I don't mind the concept of the draft. It's just there's some things they should do to fix the draft to make it mean more.
I think the problem is there really aren't rules. And
No, you
this
can do
is
what you
this is
want.
lens cleaner. I realized was as soon as I held this up and used it to start making points that it may look like something besides something to clean lenses with. It's lens cleaner. I
With
don't
it,
get that excited talking about wrestling.
well, Doug, you mentioned some of the picks there and the free agents. Let's go ahead and talk about major takeaways from night one. For me, it makes sense for Roman to go as choice number one. Obviously, if you get first pick, who are you picking? You're picking
Right.
Roman Reigns. What doesn't
Absolutely.
make as much sense to me is why are Solo and Paul able to go with him, but apparently the Usos could not.
And is that okay? You could totally build, and in my brain I have you build a storyline reason for that. For that, watch out, Logan County, here I come. You build a storyline for that because out of respect for the tribal chief, you want to take the wise man, and if you can take a faction, yeah, you take Solo. It would have been easy to say the bloodline.
Yeah,
However, since the tribal chief is still not really happy or pleased with the
the
Usos,
Usos.
out of respect to the tribal chief, you just take those three
True.
in the first round, and if and then it fits in storyline wise. If if they are able to reconcile with the tribal chief, then and they can get a pick later on, then we bring them on. That makes I can
Or
reason that through in a storyline fashion.
and just hear me out because this one's a little crazy. Or you could just take Roman Reigns and then take Solo in a later round,
No,
and not have
no,
to explain any of that crap as to
nope.
why Solo goes with Roman, but not the ones who've been with him the longest in the bloodline. You wouldn't have to explain
If I can pick the entire OC, or
it, which
if
you
Von
apparently
Wagner
can.
if Von Wagner is now a free agent, then I can take whatever pieces of the bloodline I want to put in my toy box.
The other takeaway that came to me second after the obvious, like the Roman pick, is the fact that the whole NXT Women's Division title scene has now been upended with
Uh-huh.
both the tag champs of NXT as well as the single champ of NXT moving up to the main shows.
Yes.
And speaking of women's division, we now have champions shifting brands. Bianca now has taken her Raw Women's title belt to SmackDown. And then on the men's side, Gunther has now got the IC title over to Raw, which is something that we've seen before. And Doug, you alluded to this with the Von Wagner thing. A lot of folks may not know because they didn't really make a big deal about it. Is that what you saw on Friday night is not all you get until tomorrow.
No.
We had a bit of a
Mm-mm.
supplemental draft yesterday morning on the SmackDown Lowdown talk show. The major news there, other than the, again, nebulous rules of free agents, is we had a few more NXT call-ups. Those select NXT superstars. Apollo Crews is returning back to the main roster and Raw. Zoe Stark's going to Raw. JD McDonough is going to Raw. Doug, anything that stood out to you about night one SmackDown, their picks, or anything from the supplemental draft? Do you like the switches, or where you hate the draft, you just hate all of this?
I just hate it all. I'm a grumpy old Mark at this point. I don't know. I have something to talk about later in the show, which I seriously, seriously had a problem with. My biggest problem of all of night one of the draft, but we'll talk about it much later in the show at the end of the show.
I think Doug is foreshadowing his botch, folks. So you have to stay into the end of the show for that. What I liked about it, I do like Bobby Lashley, the benefiting, I think, from a change of scenery. He seemed to hit a wall on Raw, and I think that. Maybe, I'm also interested to see Gunther take his impressive IC reign to a place where maybe he can work with some new challengers because they've really done a lot to rebuild that title. And then lastly, I think it's going to be interesting that, the Usos were not a part of that bloodline switch, meaning that, even though the OC can all go together, but the bloodline apparently can't, it probably foreshadows that the bloodline storyline is about to end in an implosion of some sort before the draft results end up taking effect, which will happen on May 28th. So expect over storyline wise, the Roman Usos split to become pretty official here in the next 3 weeks, in my opinion, is the way it looks. As far as any other predictions, Doug, outside of that long range one, we got tomorrow night, the second half of the draft, based on what happened on night one, I think you're going to have to see a women's champ on each show, obviously. So I expect Rhea Ripley to be officially drafted to Raw, even though she's a SmackDown champion. Honestly, she actually is a Raw superstar. Her whole faction, the Judgment Day, are on Raw. She just chose, after winning the Royal Rumble, to challenge the SmackDown champion. So I imagine we're going to have a title swap kind of situation here again.
And I hate the title swap. Here, you take this belt, I'll take that belt. Oops, I dropped your belt.
I was going to say, what if someone accidentally drops it and it causes some drama, right?
Right. Just stop. Stop it. Just give Roman that other big belt you just made too.
Following that same logic and what they have done in the past, do you expect on Raw to see Austin Theory move to SmackDown? Because if you have the IC champ on Raw,
absolutely,
you have to have the US champ on SmackDown, right?
Absolutely, you'll see that balance come. You know, they'll work that out.
So my fear for that is that Austin Theory is doing so well. I just hope on a show that already has a heel that is as big a personality as Roman Reigns, that an Austin Theory with one less hour of TV, mind you, that doesn't get lost in that more compressed space.
And speaking of one less hour of TV, the SmackDown roster get more picks than with an extra hour of TV on Monday nights. What's going on with that?
In the past, yeah, they did some accommodation draft pick wise to make up for the extra hour. They never mentioned anything about that, at least on night one. They didn't. NXT call-ups. I do think that two more are pretty much destined to happen. So Pretty Deadly, who honestly are hugely entertaining. They just got removed from a trunk of a car and their bodies were dumped into a river by Tony D'Angelo and Stax. So I think that effectively wrote them out of NXT. You can bet you have a new tag team on the scene.
Oh, I love that.
And probably the biggest elephant in the room here, both literally and figuratively, I guess, is that Bron Breakker's time has probably come. He lost the NXT title not that long ago. They turned him heel, which has been different, but he's leaned into it. I figure after he fails to win his title back from Carmelo Hayes sometime this month, he's main roster bound. Do you think that's happening?
Dude, since the first time I saw this kid, just go back and watch our videos. Since the first time I saw this kid, I was like, send him to the main roster. What are we doing? Why are we keeping him?
Why are we messing around, right?
Why are we wasting our time? I mean, let's talk about bloodline there for one. And talent. I mean, strap a rocket to that kid and let him go.
I'm with you. And we will talk about that on our show next week to see what happened, because next week we will be reviewing Backlash as well as wrapping up the WWE Draft and how everything turns out. But that is our analysis on night one, what we expect for night two. And now we're going to get into some predictions in our main event, Doug. Now it's time to talk the follow-up to WrestleMania, emanating from Puerto Rico. The first time that we've had a pay-per-view in Puerto Rico, a premium live event in Puerto Rico in 18 years, I think is the tally on that.
Yes. So, I'm looking at my notes here on my computer.
18. I expect a really hot crowd. Puerto Rico was that's the NWA territory of the Colognes. I mean, that was the bloody territory where you had to fight your way out of the building because there were riots. Like, fans took it so serious. This is going to be a hot crowd.
Yes, you don't just fight your way out of the building. You could end up dead in the locker room too in Puerto Rico.
Well, let's hope that doesn't happen to any of our current superstars. But yes, Google it, folks. Your wrestling history there. That is true.
Shoot.
Doug, let's look at this card.
Let's do it. I've got it pulled up here. Where are we going here? What are we doing? What are we talking about first?
We got to start with the WrestleMania rematch. That is what was the host of Puerto Rico, international music superstar Bad Bunny, reprising his match against Damian Priest. Obviously, there's no bigger stage than WrestleMania in all of wrestling, but I'd have to say pretty close to that would be a superstar from Puerto Rico like Bad Bunny returning to a home crowd of Puerto Rico to redo that match in front of what will be a super hot crowd for him. Normally, I'm not big on celebrity matches, but I have to say this one makes all the sense in the world to me if I was in charge of the book.
Absolutely. This one makes, and Bad Bunny, just like Logan Paul, who also has a home in Puerto Rico, side note,
did not know
that. Has no reason to be as good as of a wrestler as he is. This will get a very hot crowd even hotter, especially once Bad Bunny goes over.
You think that's the way it's going? You're going Bunny on this?
I'm going Bunny on this because I don't see an extended program here. Bunny goes over, and
Bunny will be 2-0 against Damian Priest.
Yes, he will.
I'm not rooting against the celebrity in his home country either. I think that it might not be a clean win, but something will happen that will cause Damian Priest the advantage, and Bad Bunny will impress folks just as he did at Mania with a performance that is more than what one would expect from a non-professional wrestler. And it's going to be a fun time had by all, especially with the crowd giving the love that they will be giving to him on this night.
Absolutely.
Let's talk next, Doug, about the singles match for the WWE Raw Women's Championship. Bianca Belair, of course, has been drafted to SmackDown, so she's taking on Io Sky. I suppose another way they could end up going with this.
I just thought, as you're about to say it, I was just thinking it. Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's exactly what I mean. Yeah. You're 100%. They could just go ahead and switch the titles to Damage Control, who I believe were drafted to Raw. I can't remember.
So if let's say Damage Control, let's say they do the thing where they take a stable Raw, Damage Control ends up on Raw tomorrow night, then that is one way they keep a belt on Raw and not have to do the switchy thing, and then
the switchy thing,
which I don't like, but that would be one way to do it. I had not thought about it.
Damage Control actually were drafted to SmackDown, so that is not going to help.
That's not going to help. So they're still going to have to do a damn switchy thing.
Which I think probably also means that Bianca Belair is going to go over here. Had Io Sky been on Raw, I thought there might be a chance, but I think Bianca retains.
Man, yeah. Do we really want to see more Bianca and Damage Control? I mean, you move them all. Man, that French vampire is back in control of creative, isn't he?
Not officially.
That's exactly what a French vampire would say.
Nothing to see here. Austin Theory, Doug, is going to be defending his United States Championship in a triple threat against Bobby Lashley and Bronson Reed. Theory is super talented, not that the other men are not. Very entertaining. We don't know where he is ending up yet. I think that he gets drafted over to SmackDown and takes that U.S. title with him. I think he's retaining. Of course, Lashley's already been drafted to SmackDown, so it could go that way too.
Yeah, because Lashley could just take it. And again, we have the switchy. No need for a switchy thing or anything. Well, they're not going to switchy those. But, to have the belt over there, Lashley could take it. Where's Bronson Reed? Has he been drafted yet? I don't remember.
I don't think so.
Because in my heart, I want to see the thick boy walk out of there with the belt.
Dude, I think that Bronson Reed is highly underrated. I don't think he's been given his due yet. That avalanche off the top rope is one of the more devastating looking splashes you'll ever see. He doesn't go for the height thing. It just looks like he literally just in one move climbs and falls somehow at the same time. It's like gravity is working twice as hard on him as anyone else. Yes. It just looks devastating when he hits. That could be a wild card. I mean, Austin and Bobby have a history. They could get themselves distracted with one another, and you could go a third way with this where Bronson Reed takes advantage of their distractions and steals this one. That would be interesting, but I think that still, if you made me put money on it, I'm going to go champ retains.
Yeah, if I'm putting money on it, which I'm not, so I'm going with the thick boy. Boston? Bronson Reed. I just added a fourth man to
What roster is he on? I'm so confused.
He's
Who's
on that
Boston with?
secret. Boston Sneed is on the secret Saturday morning show that only I get to watch.
When do you have the time?
Early Saturday mornings, man. I get up before everybody else at like 4 in the morning.
Watch extra wrestling.
Yep, that's what it's called.
Seth
WWE
Rollins.
Extra Wrestling. Seth Rollins and almost really.
Yeah,
Well,
I know.
who is
Really.
another free agent right now? By the way.
Here's hoping he moves to AEW Dark Elevation, which has been canceled.
Can Tony draft some of these people?
I'm sorry. I don't want anyone to not have a job, but I have yet to see anything out of Omos other than his impressive size that has made me feel like he's he's not good on the mic. He's not good in the ring. He's big. So Seth
But he
Rollins
is like 92 feet tall. So, and
he's
yes,
92 feet tall. Seth needs to go over,
mm-hmm.
but I mean, that's conventional wisdom, I guess. Omos, lost at Mania. Does he lose again? Does anyone care? Does Vince care?
Care?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just make this short and painless and have Seth do Seth Rollins things and move on.
I would love that, but I got a feeling Omos is going over.
Do you really?
I do.
Okay. So I think this might be was your official pick Bronson Reed for the U.S. title match? Because this is the second one we discussed.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Bronson, not Boston.
Okay. All right, we got two disagreements, which is good. I like that. I'm afraid we won't disagree on this next one as much as I want to. And it's because I really do want to see at least some title change. But I guess now that I'm looking, there's not, in my opinion, going to be any title changes on this card. But Rhea Ripley, who just got that title, is taking on Zelina Vega. So one, and this is, and tell me if you disagree, but I know that this is nothing against Zelina. We're huge fans of Zelina here. We've called her out on many occasions as being fantastic. However, in this instance, this would mean a whole lot more. The whole story of her being in Puerto Rico, her the home of her parents, for the first time wrestling there, like it would be a great story had they made her a serious threat before like 2 weeks ago. She's not really been anything more than a ringside manager presence for months now, and yet now we're supposed to buy that she's a number one contender.
Yeah, it won't be a squash. She'll get her hometown pops in, but there's no way Rhea loses. It just doesn't happen.
I honestly think that this could, under different circumstances, be one of the best matches of the night. Zelina is that talented. She just is not ever really, outside of a period of time when she was Queen of the Ring, for whatever reason, they've never let her be that singles star. And it's just a little too late to make her a serious contender now. Though I think that they'll have a great match if they decide to not make it an out-and-out squash for Rhea. But definitely the smaller Zelina is going to be fighting from underneath, and it would make no sense for her to win it, despite her home country, technically, I guess her home country, not country, but her home territory's advantage.
Yeah. Is this the closest we're going to get to a House of Black versus House of Purple?
I like that. Yeah, I do believe it will be, at least until 2024 when a bunch of AEW contracts come up. Speaking of AEW contracts that WWE was interested in, let's go.
Excellent segue.
It's the night of segues. We remember how to do this. It's been a while.
Oh, I want to
Cody
see a
Rhodes,
segue
my
on a
friend.
pole match. I think that you just kind of stop right there because Cody has to have some comeuppance and some sort of consolation prize for not bringing home the gold at WrestleMania. He gets that and starts probably what's going to be a year-long road to redemption by taking out Brock here and proving that he belongs in a main event title scene, not just because he was plucked from AEW, not because he sells a lot of t-shirts, not because he's Dusty Rhodes' son, but this establishes him as somebody who deserves to be in that picture because he can take down Brock.
So Brock has also been in a position here recently of not just losing the big matches, but seemingly doesn't care that he doesn't go over in the big matches anymore. So I think that, Brock loses and disappears for a while and no one is any the worse for wear. Cody Rhodes, I know you called it a consolation prize. I was going to use the same words because in a way that's kind of what it feels. Do you also think, by extension of this, that the next step in the Cody Rhodes' journey is I didn't beat Roman, but he gets the world title on the Raw brand because he is officially Raw. He got drafted. Does he win the tournament? But then there's that nagging, but I didn't beat Roman, and that's where you end up in a year from now?
Maybe.
Do you see him as the favorite of winning the other world title?
Who else is there? I mean, what I'd love to see with some armchair booking is Braun Breaker just come in, just roll,
or even maybe even a Sami Zayn finally getting his come up.
I mean, Sami deserves a consolation prize too.
But that's the thing. Don't you think for either of these two, not beating Roman is going to make it feel less special if they're the ones to do it? That beating Roman was really the big deal.
Of course, the thing is, who was the last person to beat Roman? Oh wait, that was Baron Corbin.
So Baron Corbin's taking this whole thing in Saudi Arabia.
So that's the thing, who was legit the last person to actually beat Roman?
You're right. That's the last pinfall the man took.
So
which is weird. Just weird.
I mean, there are a lot of people that have stepped up and not been able to get the job done. So I don't think it lessens if it's Seth Rollins, which God, I hope I'm wrong and Omos doesn't win, but he's got a feeling he's going, oh my God, they could put that on Omos, Kevin.
Don't do that to me, man. This is our first night back. I'm not ready to deal with that level of throwing yet.
Oh, if Omos goes over Rollins as I predicted, just like a madman for some reason, but that solidifies that Omos. Oh wait, Omos is still on Raw, right? He's not made SmackDown.
So. No, he's not made a check. No.
Okay.
So you heard it here first, folks. Dougler here says that Omos is your next world champion, leading the Raw brand.
Yep, with MVP as his mouthpiece because he needs one.
I think we're both in agreement then that Cody Rhodes has to win the Brock Lesnar match.
Yeah. Cody's winning, and then Brock, gets his paycheck, hops on his plane, and this might go on first, Kevin, just so Brock can go shower and go home.
Before we get to the last match, let's discuss that a little bit. Do you think this? I mean, it would on paper and the way they set it up could be a really fun match. But do you think we actually get a match out of Lesnar? His last few appearances have been mostly that, appearances more than they've been matches, with either cheap cop-out finishes or just short to the point, don't break a sweat, I'm on the plane, I'm out of here. Do you think Brock Lesnar gives his all on this and we get a legitimate contest, or are they going to shortchange us again?
I think it depends on how well Brock likes Cody. And I have not heard anything one way or the other about that. But I think at the end of the day, how well Brock and Cody get along, or, Cody really doesn't play into this at all. It's how well Brock likes Cody. If Brock likes Cody and is willing to make him look really good and put him over, we might
get a match.
We might get a match if Brock's there for a paycheck because Vince asked him to fly to Puerto Rico and do this. I'm sorry, the French Vampire asked him to fly to Puerto Rico and do this.
Yeah, I hope we get an actual match out of this because the potential for a really fun contest is there. Let's hope that they are both invested enough in it to give that to us. I know Cody will be. You're right. It really is up to the whims of Brock Lesnar and how he's feeling about a person on a particular given night.
Really?
You can't make the Beast do anything that he does not want to do. That has been pretty well established.
Mm-hmm.
Which leads
Yeah,
us to what we can only presume is our main event. And this is
yeah,
that interesting situation where when you have a part-time Universal champion, you're going to have a main event where the world title is not at play. Roman Reigns is not
mhm,
even expected to be there. But you
right.
got Matt Riddle, Kevin Owens, and Sami Zayn in a six-man against the Bloodline. Um, is this just a storyline match? Is it not the main event because it's a storyline match, or is it because it's the Roman Reigns storyline that is furthering here, even if he's not present? Is this what goes on last?
Is this what goes on last, and what happens after this? Because these bloodline storylines are almost more about post match, and they have been for so many of these premium live events now. It's almost the post match happenings that are part of the or sometimes even the main event after the bell has rang. We've got the one, two, three. I do think this will be the main event because it is Bloodline. Although Rhodes Lesnar
That
has
could,
that
yeah,
could totally be it. Honestly,
yeah.
Ripley. Well, if they built Zelina Vega,
If they
Ripley
had,
Vega, yeah,
could have
but they
been.
haven't, so that could have been. So this probably will be because the Bloodline is the hottest thing in forever in wrestling, probably since the NWO.
And because you would only have 3 weeks after this to set up, 3.5 weeks to set up Clash of Champions and the eventual brand split, and probably the end of the Usos part in the storyline, I'm thinking that the Usos do something to lose this one, or there's some sort of hesitation with Jay doing something to Sammy. There's something here that's going to make Roman Reigns unhappy. And I think the only thing that makes Roman Reigns unhappy is a loss. So I think that the Bloodline has to
Hmm.
lose. Maybe even Solo is unhappy that night and does some sort of, obvious side picking here.
Or what if Solo takes the L?
Oh, and puts him on the outs with Roman too. I think
Puts
that
him.
there's no way that Roman ends up happy though. No matter
Yeah,
what, the
I agree.
Bloodline kind of storyline has to lose this so that Roman is involved without
Yeah,
having to be there. And the only way he's
and
involved
then
if
and
he is
then once
not
again,
happy
and then they make him look bad,
and make
and
him
then
look bad.
you don't make your tribal chief look bad.
So all in all, we're in agreement on 5 of the 7 matches here. How they'll go. It's actually set up to be a pretty entertaining card. I do expect that because they have been long suffering for a premium live event, that what is a pretty good card on paper is going to be taken next level by a crowd that's going to be hotter than your average crowd. That the Puerto Rican audience is really going to bring it, and expect a good time to be had by all. We will review and whether or not that is the case on next week's show.
Indeed, we will.
And with that, Doug, what do you
Ooh,
say we hit our big finish so that you can
let's.
complain about the things that you are so angry about that you have notes?
I am so angry about so many things. I have two sets of notes. This is for my AI channel up here. This is for our channel down here about wrestling. So,
Well, let's do the wrestling bit since this is the wrestling show. What do you say?
I have incorporated AI into our wrestling show before, but
Well,
yes, let's
sure.
let's talk wrestling here. I'm going. So first off, full disclosure, incredibly busy wrestling week, incredibly busy work week,
Yeah.
incredibly busy and stressful personal week for us both. We're not going to get that on the air. So I haven't had the opportunity to catch all the wrestling I'd like to. So I am going to acquiesce to you for a match of the week
Okay.
and not. I don't feel like I'm qualified to speak on one this week, but I am qualified to rant about two other things.
You go ahead and rant away,
Actually,
my
I'm
friend.
qualified to rant about a lot of things, I think. But I'm going to go ahead and go with I'll go with my performer first. I'm going to save the
Oh,
botch
okay.
for last.
All right.
So I did say, I haven't had a chance to watch a lot of wrestling, and it pains me to do this. But sometimes you have to acknowledge, the elephant in the room. And even though he's not been on TV since he ate his muffin and his canned like mineral water or whatever it was, I have to say that CM Punk is the performer of the week in wrestling. Who is not talking about Punk this week? And let's face it, he's been in AEW meetings in Jacksonville. He's been in Impact backstage. He's been at Raw backstage and in the parking lot hanging out, chewing the breeze. Is chewing the breeze, is that a thing? It is now. With Tamina and fans at a Raw event, everybody's talking about CM Punk. And for that, I, I I don't know why he's coming back. I don't know why Tony Khan's not cutting his losses unless Tony Khan and CM Punk and all the Bucks and everybody, and it's all been a huge work this entire time, which, there's a very tiny part of my Mark brain that thinks maybe this is. Of course, we also saw, Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels eventually bury the hatchet. I don't know, but I got to give it to Punk because he's on everybody's lips once again. Performer of the week, CM Punk, begrudgingly.
Begrudgingly so. Yeah, I'll get into that in a second. So my performer of the week, I'm going with Indy Hartwell. Indy, so entertaining. Loved her. She had a amazing time with the Index storyline. Her role with the Way with Candace and Johnny was fantastic. The whole indie wrestling chants. I mean, everything about her was money up until the 2.0 launch, and somehow she lost all momentum and became a person lost amongst a sea of newer, younger acts. And I was afraid, since she never got called up, that might be the end. So it was a big surprise to even see her get in the mix during WrestleMania weekend, much less take away the NXT women's title. And not only did she further that faith that the company had in her with an excellent performance on NXT this week with Roxanne Perez and Tiffany Stratton retaining the title, by the way, she's now been rewarded even more by being called up to the main roster, where she can perhaps get back in with Index or work her way into a program again with Johnny and Candace. But whatever, I think it's just well earned and a little bit out of left field, considering I was afraid she'd been forgotten about. So good on Indy Hartwell, who I'm a fan of. I'm naming her my performer of the week. Now my botch of the week. I'll go ahead and I'll let you have the floor with botch, and I'll end with match, because my botch is a reflection of your performer of the week. So I wasn't sure what to do with this. At first, I was going to give my performer of the week to Vince McMahon, but that didn't seem right. So I didn't know where to put this. So I'm going to say, the WWE chairman of the board / Gomez Adams cosplayer, Vince McMahon. He and Punk are jointly my botch of the week, because I'm not sure who to root for in this whole thing, but Vince McMahon kicking CM Punk out of Raw, giving Vince kudos doesn't seem quite right. So I'm just going to say a botch to everyone involved for still being in my wrestling news. Somehow I'm still talking about Vince McMahon and CM Punk a whole year after I thought both of them had been, at least
flushed
6 months ago.
Yeah,
exactly. Down the wrestling toilet. And yet here they both are, back apparently in the good graces of everyone.
What?
Making a mess of our wrestling world. Doug, your botch of the week. I know you've been waiting on this one. Like, wave your fist.
Let me lighten this up a little bit, because it's an angry man. It's an old man yelling in clouds. But if you are going to have a draft and you are going to have someone representing brand A, which we'll call Raw, and brand B, which we're going to call SmackDown in this case, you want to have people who are essentially associated with those brands. If I was one of the powers that be in Raw, maybe I need to trim this down to where it's just above the lip and get rid of this. And, maybe I could do some booking on Raw and SmackDown. I would have, I don't know, somebody who'd been a legendary general manager for, say, SmackDown, making the picks for SmackDown. Yet, the geniuses in creative decided, let's have Teddy Long do all the Raw picks. Why? Why is Teddy Long legendary Raw?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure he
performer.
was the longest. Wasn't he the longest running SmackDown GM that they had in their history?
I think so. I
I
mean,
think he was. Yeah.
Teddy Long, holla holla player. He was a SmackDown guy. SmackDown. And he did all the Raw picks when he was out there. What?
So did Michael Hayes, who's I think he's been more of associated as a SmackDown writer. I can't remember which picks he did. Some of the choices were odd. Like, why did RV? I mean, it was nice to see RVD.
Okay, just on the side here. It was kind of cool for have RVD,
Pick the original bro.
Yes.
Thought the same thing, man. As soon as it came out of his mouth, I'm like, wait a minute. Really? You're the original bro.
But yeah, come on, man. Teddy Long should have been making picks for SmackDown. That's all I got. That's a botch.
All right, I will sign on to that. Not where I thought you were going with your anger at the beginning of the show, but I'll accept it. Match of the week. I know you said you didn't watch anything, and I'm actually going to fudge. Obviously, we've had 3 weeks since we've been, actually 4 really since we've had a show. 3 weeks off. I'm only going back 8 days, so I'm match of the week. I'm skipping a day. I'm calling it out because I think it's one of those matches that a lot of people would have missed just because 1, it was on Rampage, and 2, Rampage last week aired on Saturday at like in the middle of the afternoon or late at night, some odd time, odd day. So it would have been easy to miss. But 2 performers that really aren't associated with AEW, but on a higher platform, they excelled. They had a AAA World Championship match where the rest of the world got to see just what talent there is in Mexico. Obviously, we've seen enough now on AEW of Vikingo to know this dude is amazing. Vikingo defended that championship against Dralistico, and if you've seen Dralistico, also amazing. Super luchador style match on Rampage last week. Easy to miss. So if you did miss it, I recommend going back and watching it. That was the best thing because I was doing some catch up this week. As Doug mentioned, it's been a week. So definitely, if you were like me and missed it and it's sitting on your DVR, don't erase it until you have a chance to see Dralistico versus Vikingo for the AAA World Championship from Rampage.
I need to go back and catch that. I've seen some highlights, and it's one of those matches where I need to go back and watch the whole thing.
The crowd was super into it, even though they probably were not all that familiar, especially with Dralistico, but with either of these gentlemen. Vikingo, man, I hope one day we get the whole "is all elite" sign on social media for that guy because he is next level.
The way Vikingo goes, I hope he is healthy enough to have a lengthy wrestling career, man.
It could be one of those things where he burns bright and burns fast, right?
Yes, absolutely.
But,
absolutely.
Man, what a show he's giving us right now. Definitely check out Vikingo and Dralistico in any Vikingo match, as it were. With that, Doug, we are done within the hour. We remembered how to do this. We pulled it off. I miss talking about wrestling.
Yes, me too.
We missed you guys out there, and we hope you all have had a good few weeks and are enjoying an escape back into this fantasy world of wrestling, the same as us. We hope you do again next week. We have some shows coming up that you can see our schedule at the bottom of the screen. Next week, of course, 8 p.m. Eastern time. We will be live here on Facebook. We'll be on Facebook and YouTube, of course, on demand after that with our Backlash review, as well as our wrap-up of the WWE Draft. And then, of course, 2 weeks, we're going to have our big show on the sale of WWE. And before the end of the month, we're going to be looking at 2 pay-per-views, both AEW and WWE back on air. Those will be big shows, obviously, because AEW only does these things quarterly, and even though it's a Saudi Arabia show, we're going to get a world champion out of it, not a champion. So we have a lot to go over. It's a good thing we decided to come back, Doug.
Indeed it is. I think the wrestling world would be happy if we never took a few weeks off because everything happens when we do.
Man, I tell you, CM Punk was here just right before we went on air and wanted a headset. I'm like, no, man, it's 2 bros. That would make it 3 bros. We only do that for David Poole. He's the only one that gets that, not you.
He is,
out of here.
He is the third man in the booth. Absolutely.
Not Punk, man. All right, fans. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We really appreciate it. This is always fun, and appreciate all the support and you all tuning in.
Thanks, everybody.
See you next week.